There we go.
There we go.
Good?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll get started on this February 21st, 2024. So we'll start off with our land acknowledgement. On February 21st, 2024, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for this land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:02. I understand Mayor Panko is not able to be with us this evening, so we'll make sure that any documentation or information gets relayed to him, and we'll carry on. So we will move on to approval of the agenda. So could I have someone move to approve that, please?
Before we approve it, I have an adjustment I think I'd like to have made.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Under priority issues, section C, where it talks about who went to the Center Street revitalization, I think it should also be noted that Heidi, Chris, and I also attended.
Oh, okay.
In the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll have Director Clark make that little amendment. Is there any other amendments we'd like made? No? Okay, so could I have someone move to approve that agenda, please? Corey, thank you.
Awesome.
And Heidi will second, thank you. So all in favor? All right, motion carried. And we will, we've got a set of minutes to adopt this evening. Does everybody have a copy of January 17th minutes?
Yeah.
From, yes? Seeing lots of thumbs up, or? Okay, so could I have someone move to, adopt those minutes, please? Courtney, thank you. And could I have someone second Courtney, please?
Just to clarify, though, we're gonna do this as amended.
Yeah, and you
Okay.
also attended, right?
Yeah, I did not attend. No, sorry. No.
So just, sorry, if I could, just to get this straight. So Lucy, you guys, anyone else go to the Center Street? No? Okay. I will add that. Thank you. Sorry, carry on.
No problem. So we will, Corey has moved to adopt those minutes. Corey, yeah, you're.
Courtney did, and then I'll second it, but it's as amended.
Yep. Okay, so all in favor? Motion carried. Right on. All right, moving right along. Then in our agenda, we'll move on. We have any disclosures of monetary or pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. No delegations this evening. So we'll move on to our first priority issue, which is an update from the AODA conversation that Director Clark was going to initiate with the Chamber and the DBA. So I'll turn the floor over to Director Clark to give that update.
Thank you very much. So I did commit to having a conversation with the DBA and with the chamber. So they were very keen to participate. We basically just had a very broad-based discussion to talk about what do we think that the businesses know. Is there interest from the chamber and the DBA to participate? And there certainly was. So I received actually an email from the chamber this morning suggesting perhaps we host some sort of breakfast meeting in the very near future. So we're just kind of working out what their expectations are from the chamber's perspective and what they can provide and sort of where our role would fit. There was a suggestion perhaps have the minister attending, which I think would be beneficial. And also I have reached out to the regional representative who's on the website. I can't remember that person's name, but I've reached out to them to see if they would also be interested in attending as sort of an official person who could give us some direction, guidance, and answer questions. My fear would be that people would look to you guys to be experts on the AODA itself. I don't think that's a good position to put you in. I think it's an excellent position to be supporting the process, to advocating the need for businesses to move forward. I think that's a really great role. But I would never want you to be in a position where you're expected to be the final answer on if someone says, is this accessible technically or not? I don't think that's a good call. It puts us in a pretty awkward position. So people are paid for that. So let's get them to come and do that. So if that's of interest, what I would suggest is if we could maybe put together not a task force or some sort of working group that could work with me and the chamber and the DBA to move this forward. I think there is great momentum and there's a real keen interest from the chamber and the DBA. There was a conversation as well that the DBA is representative of much smaller organizations, businesses more often. The chamber has a lot more chains and larger businesses involved. The latter are likely more capable of having money to do the changes, the policies in because they've got corporate or whatever coming in to support them. And so the focus might actually be, we find out to help the DBA and assist them in moving things forward. So the chair is going to speak to the CIP. There is a connection there, and I think we can bring that in. And there is interest amongst my colleagues to support that as well. And the other final sort of comment on that would be just that it doesn't appear. I need to be careful what I say here. It doesn't. The government information, the information that's out there on the website is not super clear and it's not very concise. There's a lot of self-assessments and workshop information and really good information sessions. You can sign up, you can be part of a mailing list, those kinds of things. I've included some of those links in the invitation. That's what that information is. It helps businesses self-assess whether or not they need to become more accessible or not, and just to give them some guidance on it. There's not a lot of information that I could find, and part of my request to the individual that is in this region was to say, so what, because I think what I heard was, so what happens if you're not accessible? What are what's the punitive action? What's the recourse in order to make us push you to become more accessible? And that wasn't really very visible anywhere. I don't know if that means that it hasn't been thought out. I don't know if that legislation hasn't been rounded out. I don't know what that means, other than the question is hanging. So we'll see, I guess, is the answer. So that's my update.
And the person to enforce that would be provincial government, correct?
Yes. I mean, you could take a stick if you want, but I'm not sanctioning that. That's up to you. You do you, Corey. But yeah, the legislative enforcement comes from the province. Yeah.
Good.
So.
Well, thanks for that update, Director Clark. I really appreciate that, and certainly I will speak to the CIP in just a few minutes when we approach that priority issue. But again, thanks for all your work, and very exciting and anxious to move forward, and certainly thanks for reaching out to the minister and the individual from this area, and I think that's going to really bring to light the issues that we have in this area, to really make that specific. So thank you very much. Corey had a question.
How many people for the small group are you looking for from the committee?
Great question. How many would you like?
I would like to be on it. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
I'm interested in this.
Does it make sense for me to send an email to follow up and see what folks' interest and availability is afterwards? Okay. All right. Not to put anybody on the spot, but all right, I'll do that. Hey, any other questions? No?
Nothing else? No? Okay, so we will move to our next priority issue, being National Accessibility Week. It's a week that begins on May 21st and ends on June 1st. And basically what it is just a week that is all across Canada, and the focus is really to increase awareness of accessibility issues. And certainly around here, if we were to acknowledge Accessibility Week, it would definitely promote the work of the committee and all the wonderful initiatives that we have done and are going to do as we move forward. Just to give you an idea, some of the previous initiatives that we have done, and Corey and probably Councillor McGuire would remember some of these. Red Shirt Day is a day, I believe it happens on the Wednesday of Accessibility Week, and it's where we all sort of acknowledge accessibility issues by the wearing of a red shirt. And perhaps, I know in past years we've had a meeting on Red Shirt Day and been able to gather all in our red shirts, and it was quite powerful. And, a great initiative. We also, it happened to be on Red Shirt Day on that meeting, we had a guest speaker come and address the committee, and she talked about accessibility issues as they relate to the workplace and how to accommodate somebody with a disability in the workforce, and some of the protocols and mandates around doing that. So she was quite wonderful as well. We had a lot of media coverage. The town website promoted Accessibility Week, as did the some local media. So it was just a really wonderful week, and certainly if everybody is in agreement, that would, I think, be something we could participate in again this year.
Just a clarification on the dates. The week is May 26th.
Which one?
Oh,
first.
okay.
Yeah, and then the Red Shirt Day is the Wednesday, the 29th.
Oh, okay. Let's do the 29th. Okay. So, just to start our discussion, I know it's not till May, so we've got a little bit of time. Not very much though. It is time sensitive. And I just wondered if anyone did have any ideas of anything, any kind of initiative they would like to see done in Accessibility Week. Is there anything that anyone has ideas on? Any ideas?
I think with us trying to get more businesses accessible, maybe doing a meeting that week as well, like maybe at the community center if possible.
Oh, that's
Just do like a public meeting and invite local businesses that week.
yeah. Could do that. We could do maybe if Director Clark is okay with that, we can get that going for sure. Anything else that we can think of? We can always table it, and certainly please, if you have any ideas, perhaps direct them to Director Clark, and we can have further discussion next meeting. So I think that wraps up Accessibility Week discussion.
Just if I could, Liz,
Yeah.
is there any interest in lighting of the town hall in a certain color on perhaps Red Shirt Day?
Right?
Really red as well as the bandstand. Just a thought. And is there something, I don't know if we had some sort of counselor on this panel, perhaps he could speak to maybe whether or not we could do a proclamation of some sort. Would that be something we could do?
Yeah, and I think it's been done in the past, so it should be easy to.
Diego did it
Yeah, last couple of years.
last year.
The social media posts were another one that we could. I don't know if I forget which ones we did last year, but
Yeah.
get some updates there.
Yeah, we could.
Speaking of social media posts, could we maybe also ask, again, going back to the business thing, we suggested last meeting that we post like there's only 8 months left until, I haven't seen anything yet, so like maybe can we try and get that rolling?
I'm going to come back up here. Can I address that question?
Absolutely.
So I've been thinking about that. One of the things that we might be beneficial if we're looking at social media posts is maybe can we have a pool of people putting some facts together, information. If this committee creates posts that they want me to send out, not me, I'm not the person that sends them out, I can get them vetted through our communications. So if you guys want, like if you give me the information, we can push it out there. And if it's, I would suggest that it perhaps comes through the chair. So it's not just a bunch of, like, so there's some consistency to it. Not that you guys don't have great ideas, but, and then maybe if we can all agree on what that process is. So I don't know if we want to speak to that right now or if we want to solidify that afterwards. But I think if we can centralize that information piece, we make sure that we're giving accurate information, good tidbits. It's just good to have the conversation going. And then we can have that rolled through to the communications department person. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The communications manager, and then they can roll it out on social media.
Okay.
So.
Again, who do we email suggestions to, you? Or
To
to
Lucy.
Are you okay to take them, Lucy, and then? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Just as a chair, you can CC me too, but I think to keep it clean, give it to Lucy, and then if there's any question or we need to go out to for more conversation around that particular suggestion, we can get some clarification or at your direction, and then let me know. Okay.
Sounds good. All right. Is there anything else that anyone has feedback on?
Lucy?
Yeah.
Just on the Accessibility Week, I know I've been doing a lot of research and looking at other committees and stuff. Something I seen in Hamilton, they did a day in a life for the community to come out. So you could come out and like have wheelchairs on hand to go around parts of town and stuff to see what it's like to be, have the accessibility in town. So as a normal able-bodied person, it's just a suggestion that.
Yeah, that would be something. It would certainly raise a lot of awareness, and I think it would be very powerful. Perhaps that could be part of the week as well. Maybe just sort of a kickoff to the week, or a wrap up, or whenever we can get it organized. Yeah, I think that would be. And
Yeah, it was
You know.
interesting. They had a wheelchair. They had you could put a blindfold. It wasn't completely vision loss, but you had very impaired vision to go around and try to access some buildings and stuff that they had set up around. It was interesting to read. A really good read.
it would be very interesting. I think that would raise a lot of awareness and really bring to light for a lot of people just what having accessibility challenges can mean. And certainly bring awareness to the fact that it's not always just being in a wheelchair or using a walker, but there are other types of disabilities too. And I think that's something that maybe some people don't always remember or realize. So I think that would really bring that forward too. So wonderful suggestion. So thank you. Anything else? No? Okay, so I think we can move on to the CIP grants priority issue. And I'm going to start this conversation. Councillor McGuire is going to give us a little insight into what the CIP is and sort of the work that they do and what they're about. So, Councillor?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So the CIP program, it's been around for, I want to say, since 2015 now. So it's been around for a few years, but it's just relatively recently that it's got a added focus on accessibility improvements. The program gets funded through the town and it subsidizes projects. So if somebody wanted to add a ramp to the front of their business, if they're in the downtown core where the boundaries are, they could apply to have that subsidized at a certain rate. There's different programs, so depending on the program, it's up to 50%. Whether it's an inside renovation or an outside renovation, there's different tiers to it. But bottom line is it's free money to do the kind of projects that we want to see to improve the accessibility in local businesses and help give landlords and the local businesses just lower that financial barrier to stop or to start the work. I know the intake is coming up, so there's 2 intakes in the year. If the first intake isn't filled, then there's a second intake in the fall. But it'd be really good to see a strong accessibility component or applications to this intake. So I think anything we can do to promote that, or if there's questions out there from businesses, try to get the awareness out there. I know the planning department is the group that really spearheads it, so maybe we need to reach out to them and just see if there's anything we can do to coordinate with them. But yeah, that's going to be coming up because the idea is to get the intake kind of early spring, late winter, because then when the temperatures warm up, the work can start. So
Yeah, intake's open until March 31st.
Yeah. So, and then hopefully kind of early May, the applications will be approved. So, yeah, I didn't make there's no PowerPoint or anything on that, but that's the CIP in a couple minutes. Any questions on it, or?
You said it's up to 50% now. Is there like a capped limit?
Depending on the type of project, it's got, like the CIPC, I think it's got 13 different tiers right now or different programs. So I don't want to go off my memory or start reading off the PDF, but yeah, 50% is generally the amount that can be given. And anything from like automating doors, accessible washroom facilities, ramps. One thing I definitely, in the past, the CIP had a committee that would decide the funding for different applications. So when I was on that committee, one thing I definitely noticed a challenge in was a business might want to be accessible, but they just think they can put a ramp and it's not 1 in 12 and it's not 1.5 meters and all the different stuff. So I think one thing that would be really handy, and I don't know if it's something we need to take on or the planning department could do, or a combination of the two, is to have some kind of a pamphlet or a booklet, or I don't know how big it has to be, but just this is how you can do it. So like when you look at the Rita Hotel, when they went to rebuild the portico, there was the conversation of, okay, how much of the road allowance can you use for the stairs and for the foundations, and how big does the walking spaces need to be? A lot of that similar kind of stuff could apply to if you wanted to build a ramp on the sidewalk. Like you can use that public road allowance and we can sign an easement with the town, because it's a win-win, right? You can still pass through on the street on the sidewalk, but then we've added the accessibility to the business without them losing their square footage inside. So if we had some kind of a how-to guide or just something you could give to people, and then it makes it really clear, like to get your building permit, this is what you need to do. This is how you can get the CIP grant. And then it's just a check, check, check instead of a kind of that unknown of trying to figure it out. So anyway, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent.
It's a good one. Yeah, I really think I want to, thank you very much for that. And I know I like your idea about having a pamphlet or something tangible to give to people to say, this is what can be done. This is how we can do it, and make it approachable for them. So I think that's a great idea, and perhaps we can collaborate and maybe brainstorm some ideas of what could be included in that pamphlet, and start making that as time goes on, so that we can move forward. Does anyone have any ideas of places where a grant would be helpful?
Like specific businesses?
Yeah, or any aspect, would it maybe to have somebody come and talk about anything?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if we covered this before, we've covered a lot of stuff, but like holding an info session on the CIP, like if we could actually have all the businesses come and like have someone explain it for them and have a pamphlet to hand out after, maybe, but like do it all in one. And I feel like having someone explain it to them would also be good, because if they have questions that a pamphlet won't answer, then someone's right there to explain it to them.
Right. Okay, so that could be a possibility to sort of a public
Like an info
forum.
session kind of thing on the
Yeah.
CIP.
Perhaps.
But would there be time to do that before
March
first
31st.
deadline? I don't think so. Like, that's only a month away.
That would be tight.
It could be done for the fall intake though, right?
Correct. Generally, there is a second intake on CIP.
Somebody else or
I just Stephanie, when you were talking with the DBA and stuff, were they mentioning when they would be agreeable to a breakfast? Or would it
Sooner
be
than later. No, non-committal, sooner than later.
sooner than later?
Yeah.
So within
But
a
not,
month?
not within,
Incorporate.
probably not before the CIP.
Okay.
My apologies.
no problem.
Chris also has a question.
Elsewhere.
Maybe it's the kind of thing where this first intake, it's kind of snuck up on us, but if we have the conversation as part of that DBA chamber consultation, get the seed planted, because they're the kind of projects that are like, there's a lot more to it than putting up a new sign or some of the simpler CIP ones. So maybe it's a matter of starting the conversation in the next couple months, but then next year or in the fall intake, we could really see. I think a big one to target that would have a good return on our time is some of the landlords. Like there's some, you've got whole blocks of downtown owned by one company. And if that company could buy into the idea of doing one a year or some kind of program like that, that could, you know, in 5-10 years be a game changer for that whole corner. So I guess, yeah, because that the caveat of this stuff is it's usually the landlord. Generally, it's going to be the landlord, not the business owner. That
Not the tenant.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I think you bring up a good point that it is important to keep the conversation going, even if we are not going to be able to do it for this intake, to not sort of let it fall off the curb and just go away. It really needs to stay an open book, and then that way the fall intake, we've got some tangible information there. So I think that's a great idea. But does anyone else have any questions, comments, feedback? Corey?
Chris, since you used to sit on the committee, have they ever extended the first intake?
So it used to just be an apply, like applications could come in any time of the year. And the,
Now it's not like that.
yeah, so now they found it was more effective to have a fall intake and a spring intake, and it kind of gives people that deadline to get their application together and submit it. I don't know, I don't see that changing. It seemed to work well last year, but it's definitely a change from when the committee was still convening.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments around the horseshoe? No? Okay. So I think just to do a quick summary, just so we're all on the same page, I think we have everything done, and we were, I think, going to do that public forum, and Courtney, I thank you. I think that was a really great idea, and I also understand that we're going to collaborate as a committee and do some brainstorming with regard to putting a pamphlet together, and also think that's a really wonderful idea too, and I'm very excited to get that ball rolling, and perhaps talk about it even at our next meeting. And it could, Director Clark, if you're okay with it, just kind of casually come up on every or every other agenda until then, and then it just keeps that door open, so to speak. If you'd be okay with that. Yep. Okay, thank you very much. So I think that kind of wraps up our discussion on CIP grants for tonight. But certainly we will have further discussion on that. Our last priority issue for this evening is with regard to portable ramps. And I know the previous committee did have some discussion about that. And it was kind of open-ended at the end of it. So perhaps I could get Councillor McGuire to to kind of fill in the blanks about what we talked about and sort of where we left off and where things ended and where perhaps we could pick up. So, Counselor, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, this one, my memory's kind of weak. I remember we talked about it in the last term, and I remember some of the issues that came up were the availability of it when it was needed and the setup time, and I think the grade, the 1 in 12, was another challenge of them. But I think that's where it kind of, yeah, like we had it where there's an opportunity here. There's definitely some questions of the functionality of whether it'll work. But then I think I guess we ran out of term or we got busy with other stuff. So
My question still is a portable ramp, does that make you accessible or not? Like, I don't know if that counts as being accessible because it's not a permanent ramp.
yeah, I don't know under AODA if that
Yeah.
qualifies.
And once you get inside the place, is it accessible?
Yeah.
Just getting into a store or something doesn't mean you can get around in that store. Just because you can get into it doesn't mean it's accessible. That's what people need to still remember.
I think that is a good point, and I know there are probably some places around that you get in the door, but then you can't have a full experience in the store. You just can't get around in it. So that is something that needs to be looked at as well. However, I think this is a good starting point and certainly a step one for some of the businesses to start becoming accessible. And I think maybe it might be a good way for them to think, okay, I put a portable ramp in, so that was step one, and sort of do it in small increments so they don't get overwhelmed and they don't feel like, what's the point? I can't make my business accessible. It's too big a job. But I think just putting a portable ramp in is a good spot to start. Is there any ideas? Courtney has a question.
I just want to say, I agree with what you're saying, and I do think portable ramps are a good start, but I think we also need to be careful with portable ramps because one thing I've found myself using them is that they aren't always the sturdiest and they don't always stay in place the most. So while it is a good start, it also could be like a bit of a liability because if people are just going out and buying whatever ramp and they throw it in front of something and someone's going up and it moves and then they fall off it, is it then that business's fault that they didn't provide a sturdy enough ramp or a...
Definitely. I can definitely see your point, and I know that would be something that we would have to be very nitpicky and very careful of doing and making sure that all of our aspects of getting that ramp are safe and accessible for everybody. Because otherwise, what's the point of having the ramp if it's not going to be safe? But that would have to be looked at, and I think that would probably be best done on an individual basis, perhaps collaborating with that business and saying, here are some options of something that's going to work for your building, and sort of go on from there. But I think that is an excellent point, that it does need to be safe and accessible and liable. Jen?
Sort of to Courtney's point, my issue with a ramp that's portable is it can also be kind of othering, because if you can put in a portable ramp that's going to be accessible and safe, then you could also put in a permanent ramp. And if you're choosing to go portable, then it could be othering, right? Like if you have to ask a business to put the ramp for you there, that's
That's an
not
inconvenience.
accessible to everybody. Yeah,
How do you get in to ask them to put the ramp?
that too. Yeah, call them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too.
Right.
Stephanie?
So with, with those comments being made about a portable ramp, my question leads into the easement areas with the towns. Portable to me means it can be removed and put somewhere else. But if portable means like it's in one spot, it extends and then folds up, are you competing on town perimeters? Right? So where do you, who makes up the rules?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a lot, like, yes, we need them to be accessible, but at the same time, there's rules and guidelines. So like, I guess one of the questions I was thinking about too, as we were talking about this, that you can get into the building, but sometimes it's not accessible once you're in there. Is there like town guidelines that say that you have to have an accessible washroom now?
Yeah, so for example, I know this one just because of talking to the business owner, but say there's a music venue on Russell Street that's got 3 accessible washrooms, but because of the constraints of Russell Street, there's no way to get a ramp at the 1 to 12 up the steps in there. So if you can get in, it's accessible, but getting in is the problem. And it's one of those things, I think, for the portable ramps, it's a low cost solution that might, like, it's easy, low hanging fruit in one way, but it's got a very limited functionality, because when you think of that 1 to 12, it's not a very big step that it can really solve. So probably definitely limited in how many applications that it can work for. And it's got like a lot of the stuff coming up now. I remember coming up the last time we discussed it, so it's definitely not without its cons. But if it gives somebody a chance to get into somewhere that's got an accessible washroom, you know, I guess it's better than nothing. But yeah, the ideal goal would be every business downtown's got a ramp that, whether you're able.
So then how do we, knowing that there's impending deadlines, no full structure as to how it's going to be implemented, but how do we as a committee help inform the town as to what possible options are then when we have so many roadblocks? I don't mean to be the downer in the situation, but like,
Again,
I
you're
understand the
talking
need
about
for
the
full
red deed.
accessibility, but I mean, when you're looking at certain buildings, the one you discussed being part of it, that's actually one of the shorter steps. There's some that have more. Like, how are they even, when you're talking about a certain grade,
The 12.
how do they even begin to try and implement that?
Yes.
Maybe it's one of those things, like I'm thinking, Heidi, of when you were looking at the other accessibility weeks of, okay, this is what some other town or city's doing. Maybe it's something that if we all went back between now and the next meeting and tried to find some other examples in Ontario, Canada, even internationally, because this is a problem that exists everywhere. And who knows what, maybe there's somewhere in Europe that's doing something really innovative, and the only reason it's not here is because nobody knows about it. You know what I mean? So the portable ramps were like one of those kind of brainstorming ideas, but maybe there's more out there we could come up with and kind of rehash that into the AODA and the CIP and those conversations with the businesses to get improvements.
I think that's a great idea to do some research and really see what could we have that we don't have, but maybe just haven't thought of, and that we could have easy access to. So I think that's a really good point, and really do encourage everybody to try and do some research on what are other towns and even countries, as you mentioned, doing and what could be feasible in Smith Falls. So I thank you for your comments. Wonderful. Corey.
So just for anybody that's watching, we're not saying that, like, if you're choosing a portable ramp over nothing, obviously we're gonna suggest that you do it, but we're just saying it's not the safest option out there. But it's definitely one of the cheaper ones. So if you're considering doing anything, do it and then go from there.
It is certainly a very
Temporary.
solution and certainly a good first step. But I would, it is encouraged for businesses to have a permanent solution at some point. And I think going back to Councillor McGuire's point, if people were to do some research into what's available out there, that might make things a little easier and make them realize, make people realize and businesses realize that it is feasible to have a permanent solution. It's just a matter of what kind of a solution would work at my business. So I think that is a very important point to make, that it is a portable ramp is a very temporary solution, but certainly can be improved upon. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for your wonderful points, and ladies. Is there any other questions or comments around portable ramps or?
I just have one, being downtown and stuff. With the portable ramp option, some businesses might have to go that route because of the utility accessible, like the gas lines and stuff. A lot of the gas lines, if you're walking up and down Beckwith Street, are situated almost directly in front of some businesses' front doors, if you take a walk. So putting in a permanent ramp structure is going to be difficult. And I know even though they redesigned the street and everything, a lot of the utilities did not get moved, and they're there. So especially if you look at the lower part of Beckwith Street, there's quite a few businesses that have the utility entrances and accessibilities that are right in front of the front doors. So, but knowing that a portable ramp and structure will be something that they can look at, which they may have been trying to figure out how you could put a permanent structure and then just getting frustrated, well, I can't do it. But this is another option that they can go about putting something in.
Good point.
That's just my point.
Yeah, it's a very good point that, again, it is a good point that some businesses, a permanent ramp is just not feasible. So a portable would be their only solution. And just to summarize, going back to Courtney's point, then that business would really have to sit down and it would have to be very specific as to what kind of a portable ramp would work for that business so that people are safe. But I do thank you very much for your comment, and I think that is a really good point, that it's not for everybody, and that's okay, as long as the door is open and you're willing to do the best you can. So I think, Corey.
I have one question, maybe to Director Clark. If your business is in a heritage building, are they exempt from making it accessible? Or do they still have to come up to the accessibility code?
So I think we spoke a little bit about this last time, and I'm certainly not either a heritage expert or a planner or bylaw enforcement. I'm many things that I'm not. But there's an obligation to provide under the legislation accessible access to a public facility. So there are obviously constraints that you will encounter, but there will have to be some sort of workaround.
Okay.
That's the expectation that I can see within the legislation. That's how I'm interpreting the legislation.
Yeah.
Not every facility or building is going to be able to accommodate a lift to the third floor. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But there will be, a requirement for accommodations in other ways. So that's that answer.
Okay, thank you.
I'm really good at giving you cagey responses. That's not what I mean. I don't mean to come across that way, but that would be my interpretation of the legislation as I've reviewed it.
Okay.
Someone with more heritage experience may have another comment. I'm not sure. Just a thought.
Yep.
It's a great answer. Great answer, Director. So I think that wraps up our portable ramp discussion, if everybody's okay to move on. So we'll just move on in our agenda then. We have no correspondence items this evening. We also have no in-camera issues this evening. So we'll move right down to item number 10, which is our next meeting date. And we'll have that discussion now. And we usually, I know we
March
try
20th.
and meet monthly. So, Director, if you want to take the reins on that discussion.
So is the third Wednesday working? Because I know, Jen, are you every?
Working that Wednesday.
Okay, so if the third Wednesday doesn't work,
The 13th, so it's because it changes. Like
Okay.
every other Wednesday I work.
okay,
So like next month I work on the 20th, but I'm off the 13th and the 27th.
okay. Would it be acceptable for the 13th or the 27th to meet?
27th would be better.
27th?
I was gonna say, the 27th is better for me. I'm already tied up the 13th.
Okay.
So, do we think then 27th then? Everybody okay with that?
6 o'clock again.
6 o'clock, 27th at 6?
Fine.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll leave that in Director Clark's capable hands. And we will just carry on then in our proceedings. And I think if everybody's okay with it, we can adjourn our proceedings for tonight. So could I have someone move to adjourn, please? Corey, thank you. Could I have someone second them, please? Courtney, thank you. All in favor? All right, so motion carried that the meeting be adjourned at 6:55 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. That's all for this evening.